Good day, fellow deal makers. We're recording this on a Friday, so this is pretty exciting. I don't know when it's actually going to publish. My team decides that for me. But on today's show, we're going to talk about money. I see this huge sign in this guy's background. Money never sleeps. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow deal makers, let's welcome Dion to the show. Welcome, man.
Thank you so much for having me, Josh. I really appreciate it.
Money never sleeps. All right, talk to us. What the heck does that mean, and who the heck are you?
Yeah, so first and foremost, my name is Dion Pouncil. I am the principal and chief investment officer of Pouncil Capital, which is a systematic hedge fund that we run down here in the Miami, Florida area. So, Money Never Sleeps actually is two parts to this image you see in the background. Wall Street was a movie that came out in the late 80s, early 90s. Gordon Gekko was like a famous character from it. And then in the early 2000s, Shia LaBeouf was the star of the second version of the movie called Wall Street's Money Never Sleeps. So those are two of my favorite movies. And I just like that tagline from the Money Never Sleeps version. Also, a good friend of mine does canvas art, and he created this design on his own. He has like a canvas art drop shipping company, and it just flowed right in. I was like, I need that one right there, and so that's how those two things came together to get this background image that you see here today.
So side by side, let's ask a movie question because I love the arts, I love entertainment, I love looking at a movie and learning from that. Side by side, Wall Street from the '80s with Charlie Sheen, Michael Douglas, versus the one with Shia LaBeouf. Which one
Oh
would you
man.
say is more realistic when it comes to investing in hedge funds and the hustle and bustle of the world?
Well, realistic, you see more of the grit and the grind in the original. They were giving more insight into he was like basically starting from nothing, just got licensed not too long ago after before the movie started, worked his way up, and Gordon Gekko was his first big whale client. So I would say that's more insight on maybe a little bit as an investment manager or a trader, as they grow their client base and some of the trading experiences that he was going through. The Wall Street Money Never Sleeps was more of a story, right? It was kind of modeling what was going on around the financial crisis of '08.
Mm-hmm.
Gordon Gekko was getting out of jail. And so those things were more dramatic, and it was less about the actual, trading and client acquisitions and stuff like that. Two great movies, slightly different approaches.
Yeah, got it. If they made a movie about you, who would they use as your actor?
Well, I'm semi making a movie about myself, so
Get out of here. I didn't
I
know
would like to
that.
play myself in this movie.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that we're taking more of a document approach.
Yeah.
So we're kind of documenting literally me building up this company and me helping people create generational wealth. So like my tagline or my mission is to help 75 million plus people improve their lives through financial education and trading and investing. And so I made that decision up last year. I don't want to get too dramatic, but last year I was on my deathbed, and I made that decision to help the world become at least 1% better before I got up out of here. And so at that time, it was 7.5 billion people on the planet, and so that's where I got the 75 million number from.
All right. I love deathbed conversations. That sounds super weird, right? No, but
Yeah,
I like it once the person survives and then
right.
goes back, right? And what did we learn from the situation? So talk to us about your deathbed situation, how you rose from it, and why it inspired you to go for this big ass goal.
Yeah, well, originally I'm from the south side of Chicago. I literally grew up in Inglewood, so I got multiple survival stories
Chirac, right there.
to tell from there. But last
Yeah.
year specifically, I caught COVID-19, and on June 6th, and by June 18th, no, I'm sorry, July 6th, and by June 18th, I was in the hospital, and so I was battling, and finally my wife convinced me to go to the hospital. I went to the hospital for sure after I got done trading. And so I was at the hospital by like 11 a.m. And by 1 p.m., I was in intensive care on oxygen. And so I had spent the next 3 or 4 weeks in the hospital. I had blood clots in my lungs. I was fighting for air. I lost 35 pounds in 2 weeks, could barely breathe, walk, talk, all of that. And so on the day they initially put me in intensive care, the doctor was like, you should probably call your family and start getting things in order. You might not make it through the night. And so I didn't accept any of that, rebuked that. I'm very big on, eye gate, mind gate, ear gate, and protecting what type of energy is allowed into my spirit. And I'm very big on rebuking or deflecting anything that I don't agree or don't believe in. So I did that. And so they didn't want me to get up and go back and forth to the restroom because I was so weak and I could barely walk. And so I was like, listen, you guys can do, pretty much whatever you need for me in here. Is two things I'm not going to do. I'm never going to take the COVID vaccine. And I'm also going to get up and I'm going to go to the restroom every time. And so when I went to the restroom, I would look myself in the mirror and I would talk to myself and I would encourage myself and say, you're going to beat this. I believe in you. You're a fighter. You're all of these encouraging things to myself and literally speak life over myself. And I could see gradually during that process me getting better over time. And so end up beating it and getting released from the hospital after I passed the oxygen test and passed the walking test and things of that nature. And then literally my newborn was born 15 minutes later, the day I got released from the hospital. So it was a lot. Very grateful to be able to go through that experience and come out on the other side. And just, the conversations that I have with myself and the commitment, because I'm more of a behind the scenes person. So I'm more low key. Like my wife is a financial influencer. She has a blue check on Instagram. And for the most like last 4 or 5 years, I've just kind of really been like her Instagram husband, laying low behind the scenes and just working on my businesses and things like that. But when I was in a hospital,
Yeah.
I committed to say, you know what, if I do truly want to make impact, because at this time I think our course had like maybe 4,000 students, and I say, I see the impact on the lives that we're having here, and so if I truly want to help people and I want to help more people, I'm gonna have to come in front of the camera and share the story to be able to reach more people. And so that's when I committed to come back in front of the camera and share the stories and teach and encourage people. And then that's where I came up with the 75 million, because at that time it was like 7.5 billion people on the planet. So that's kind of a short synopsis of some of what occurred last year.
Bro, congratulations, man. All
Thanks.
right. So out of all this stuff, I know we're going to talk about money. I know we're going to talk about hedge funds and deals and markets and this and that, and you got training programs and a big ass goal, right? But I know we're going to talk a lot about this. But I think for us deal makers, right? I've gone through a lot of situations. My deathbed was almost self-inflicted when I was standing on a bridge thinking of, doing a swan dive because I cashed
Thank
out
you for not
pension.
doing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I did it just for you, buddy. So, I think that when you face death or when you face a hard time in your life, choosing life, right? Choosing life through this is something us deal makers um, is kind of like a pivotal point in our lives. Now, you said something. You chose life. You looked at the mirror every day and you said, "You could do this, Dion. You got this." You're speaking to your soul out of the mouth, right? Out of the power of the tongue chooses life and death, right? A wise
Facts.
book
Yes.
talks about this. And
Yep.
every day you were going, "This is the truth. This is the truth." Doctors are saying one thing, and you said, "Nope." And you even used a cool word, rebuke. You said, "Ear gate, mind gate, eye gate, ear gate, whatever." All those gates that you were talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not allowing that crap in my spirit. Why is that so important to you? Because that's what I want to talk about as steel makers before we get to the point of death, before we have to face that. Protecting that stuff, I think, is important. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I'm very big on energy. I'm a firm believer that you have the power of life and death in your tongue. A lot of it was my background. I was raised in a Christian community, but also I'm a math and physics nerd at the core. So always wanting to understand the why behind something,
Mm-hmm.
and then understanding how powerful energy is. So I could get a little nerdy and a little technical. Just bear with me here, but Um, we all live in this world. This world, as we know it, is, we can understand. Humans can see in 3 dimensions. We can mathematically prove 12 to 13 dimensions. So I can only see, height, width, and length, right? But there's literally 9 to 10 more dimensions that are right here, right now, that we can mathematically prove that I cannot see, right? So knowing that and understanding that, I also know another level that we have Newtonian physics, which is the first 3 laws of physics are, a object that is motionless will remain motionless unless an equal or greater force is acted upon it. Then we have, the law of force, that if you apply energy, if you apply force to an object, it will move. And then we have, for every action, there's an equal opposite reaction. If you understand those 3 laws of physics, just at a very simple level, those 3 laws basically govern the entire world, right? And so those things are energy based. We have those down to a math, we have those down to a science. If I came to you 200 years ago and I said, hey, humans can fly, you would probably thought I was crazy. And, you would say, get out of here. Or maybe they might, hang you if they thought you were a witch or something. But now we fly humans in an aluminum tube at 500 miles an hour in the sky thousands of times a day. And the reason that we can do that is because we understand the mathematical principles of force that enable us to defy gravity, right? So if we can understand those principles and we can get it down to a math and to a science, and we can manipulate this earth or this world how we want to achieve a goal, I started to apply those principles to my mindset into my life, right? So thoughts are things, they vibrate at a certain frequency. And so if I am vibrating at a certain frequency mentally and I'm focused on the energy that I am putting out, the third law of physics says that for every action, there's an equal opposite reaction. So if I'm thinking positive, if I'm thinking about wealth, if I'm thinking about abundance, if I'm thinking about peace, if I'm thinking about love, if I am putting those energies out, those energies must return to me. It's just physics, right? And I just keep it real simple. So when I talk about ear gate and eye gate and mind gate, the things that you listen to are energy. They are vibrations. And so if you are listening to a certain type of content or a certain type of music, or you're watching a certain type of content, those things are being poured in your spirit, and you are agreeing with those things and you are receiving those things. So when you watch them and you listen to something, you're in agreement. And when you're in agreement, you activate another law of physics, which is, harmony and unity, and you have a combination of these forces. And so now these things begin to gain more force and more energy. And so as things begin to gain more force and more energy, you activate other laws of physics like momentum and inertia. And so you start using these things. You can say, well, I can use these things to my benefit, or I can allow these things to affect me negatively. So if I start working towards my goal must start working towards me, because I'm putting energy in it. I'm putting actions in it. And so I am applying force towards my goal, and my goal, by the third law of physics, must start working towards me. So I use that knowledge to manifest my dreams into reality. And I take a very mathematical, systematic approach to those things. And so that's how my mind operates. That's how I've been able to have a lot of success in my life. And I like to simplify things to easily repeatable steps, and not try to recreate the wheel, right? And keep it simple. So that is a more in-depth version to how I approach things, but that is the why. And so when I hear certain things that I don't agree with, I don't have to be disrespectful, or I don't have to call somebody out, or I don't have to waste any energy, because I'm big on energy management. I can just say, I don't receive that, or I rebuke that, or I do not agree with that. And so me reflecting and deflecting that energy is me not accepting those things. And so things that I do hear, I may agree with. And then if I agree with it, it can go to another level. And then you can touch and agree with somebody and amplify something or accelerate the process. So these things are very well known, very well documented, very simple to understand. It's just about the perspective of using those things actually for the things you want to accomplish in your life.
Bro, you totally nerded out on me. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I said I might get a little nerdy for it, but you
but
know.
I forgot to hit record, so you might have to go through all that. I'm just kidding, man. We got
Oh my
it.
god.
Bro, this is so cool because I
Yeah.
never heard it put this way, right? So, I've studied not as in depth as you, just to be super clear. For people who know me, they'll call BS on that. Like, but I've studied. I studied energy. I studied the laws of attraction. I studied what we say and how we speak it. Like Tony Robbins does it all the time about affirmations and all this stuff. Let me ask you this question as let me revert this back to you. Is there a time where you didn't understand this or we're doing this negatively and we're reaping the negative effects of these actions or these laws of physics?
Uh, I have had this approach for a long time, but I have seen the effects on other people, even if it was from me, right? So I'm the eldest of three. And so in the hood, growing up, we always play this thing called the dozens. We're always talking about each other, like who could tell the best degrading joke about somebody,
Yeah.
which as an adult and then looking back at it from an energetic standpoint, it's like, wow, this is terrible. Like, how do we even allow this to happen?
Yeah.
Um, but I grew up in that environment and in that, that world. And you can literally see how those words can affect another kid's life, or you can see how they might agree with that or accept those words over time, and it becomes a part of their character. So I've seen the positive and negative effects of that. Then also, like, one of my favorite books is called The Wisdom of Failure. And in this book, he talks about all of these business blowups like Enron and all these companies have had bankruptcies or major scandals, and how the premise of the book is that humans learn through experience. And the whole thought thread through the book is that yes, humans learn through experience, but you don't have to personally go through the experience to learn from it. You can read about Enron, see what they did, and choose not to take that route. Well, we learned this growing up very early. Like, I grew up in Inglewood, and I would walk out of the house and I would see crackheads, or I would see Hennessy bottles around the block. And we had this saying, it's like, I don't have to do crack to know crack is bad. Like, I can see Johnny on the corner and I can see his experience, and I choose not to have that experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have choice, and we have a will that we can exert on things. And so I choose not to do certain things, and I choose not to learn certain experiences personally. I can read about them, I can learn about them, and I can decide which ones. So seeing those things growing up, I can see that how impactful and how important they are to speak life in yourself and to other people. And then now, being married and a father of two girls, I can see how impressionable and just how much of a sponge humans really are, just watching human development happen in real time.
Yeah, dude. So from Englewood to hedge fund, how the heck does that happen?
Yeah, that's a journey in and of itself, right? So I had the opportunity to get out of Inglewood through a baseball scholarship. I went to Hofstra University in Long Island, New York. So played some college baseball, D1 baseball, then played some professional independent baseball for a while. And those things got me the ability to travel around the country and travel around the world, be exposed to different things. And so I got exposed to different levels of money and wealth early, though. One of my AAU coaches had the opportunity to play for. He had a mansion in Hyde Park in Chicago. And so Hyde Park and Inglewood are literally separated by blocks. So Hyde Park, the Obamas live there. Oprah has a house there, dignitaries from around the world. And the University of Chicago, and then you could literally cross the block from 60th, which is like the end of University of Chicago, and Inglewood started 61st, and you could get shot and killed. So, the day and night levels of wealth and things like that were very prevalent in my environment, and I was able to see kind of the discrepancies, and again, say, hey, this is the life that I want to live. And so I had the opportunity to go to Hofstra to play baseball, and I had really good grades coming out of high school and things of that nature. After baseball, transitioned into the corporate business world. Knew that was not going to be the route for me for a long time, and so I started around the lines of entrepreneurship. Started a digital agency. Digital agency led into us building technology. Building technology led me to moving to the Bay/LA. During those times, building apps, raising money for apps, consulting with tech companies, and then eventually end up working at a venture capital firm out of LA. That venture firm had two sides of the house. It had the venture side and the trading side. And so I migrated to the trading side. And also around the same time I was working at that firm, I met the young lady who is now my wife. And she had been trading since she was 16. She was a former high net worth wealth manager for UBS. And so we just really went hard on the trading together, which led to us creating. She had already had her financial education company, and then I started working on my hedge fund. And then together, collectively, we had started the investing course. And so all of those are brief synopsis of how now I am a licensed Series 3 hedge fund manager. And we're here today.
Super cool. Now, in this show, I love to ask, deal questions, money questions, and also personal questions, right? Because to do a deal with people, you got to know, like, and trust them. And we leverage this show to put deals and deal makers together. That's the purpose. That's how we make money ourselves, is brokering relationships and brokering deals. So I leverage this show to get to know people and let the audience know people. So hopefully they do a deal with you. Okay.
Yeah,
So that's very transparent from the very beginning.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Personal question. There's one street that separates these two major wealth gaps, right? We talk about a wealth gap and we're like, it's getting wider, right? Like, and we talk about the rich and the poor and the middle class is disappearing and this wealth gap. In Chicago or wherever the Inglewood, right? There's a street that separates the gap, right?
Literally. Yeah.
And as you are going through your journey, was it hard for you to crest over that from one side to the other? And is there any forces trying to pull you back to the other side of the street?
Yeah. So I love Chicago. It is my favorite city in the world, and it's nothing like summertime shy.
Good pizza
Yes.
too.
And the food, yes,
Yeah.
amazing. Chicago also is one of the most segregated cities in the country. Okay. So it is literally compartmentalized to a certain extent, like blacks over here, whites over here, Hispanics over here, Asians in Chinatown. Like, it really is like that. So to see the discrepancy or to see the segregation is not difficult, because you can literally go from Inglewood to a High Park and completely change the nationalities and ethnicities. Example, I graduated from high school with 3,000 students. We have one Hispanic student, two white teachers, and the entire school the rest was black, right? So it is very, very distinct like that. So you don't have to go too far to see the separation clear as day. That's one thing. The second thing is I think beyond segregation or beyond racism and things of those natures, you have classism. And I think that's really what you're talking about when you talk about the difference between the poverty or the haves and the have-nots. And classism and wealth, money is green or money doesn't have a color. Once you get to a certain level of wealth, genuinely nobody cares. Like, they don't care whether you're white, black, green, red. Like what you talked about is, do I know you? Do I like you? Do I trust you? Can you do what you say that you can do? And can you do it in a professional, respectable manner? And can you do it at an affordable price, right? So for me, being blessed to have the opportunity to be exposed to those different worlds at an early age, I was able to be informed and cultured enough to see how real wealth operates. And so real wealth cares more about their time and their legacy not necessarily what are we doing today, or not necessarily how much money can I make today. It's how can this deal create passive income and or income that can work for me, and then how can that income be passed down through my generations. And so once I was able to understand that, then those are the things that I began to seek, because my grandfather died when I was 9. So I kind of became the man of the family at a very early age. And so every decision that I was making was, how can I get my family out of the hood, and how can we create wealth so that nobody in my bloodline ever experiences the things that I had to go through. And so I take that approach. I always say, like, I'm playing for forever. I'm playing the long game. So when I make decisions about people or networking or deals, it's not about get rich quick. It's not about how can I make money off of this right now. Yes, I want to be able to generate some revenue off of this opportunity now, but does this align with my bigger picture long-term goals? And if so, how? And then how can we implement those things so that it is a streamlined process? And that is what I think real deal makers and real wealth generators are always focused on, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. Once we can kind of get past that, now we can say a deal is really, you have a product or service, I have capital. We're looking for an agreeable price that we both feel is valuable, where we eat off of the deal, whether that's me getting the product or service or you getting the trade in capital. And how can we make sure that it's fair enough for us both to accept it, right? So those are the ways that I look at the deal flow and the approaches. And then being a trader, when we break down the energy of trading and we break down what a trade actually is, that really is what it is. You have a seller that's selling an asset or instrument, whether that's a stock, a bond, a future, a cryptocurrency, whatever it is. You have a seller, somebody who says, I want to sell this asset either for profit or because I believe it's about to decrease. You have a buyer, somebody saying that I have capital or I have resources that I want to find somebody that is selling something that I want or like. Cows, chickens, stocks, bonds, whatever it is, product or service. I have capital or resources and I want to find somebody that's offering that service to me. And this is the price that I'm willing to pay for it. And when you match that seller and you match that buyer, you got a deal. And so if we can keep all those things to those simplest formats, then we will be able to close whatever deal in whatever industry and whatever asset class we want, and able to make sure that everybody wins and everybody eats.
That's pretty cool, man. So, hedge fund, right? We've interviewed private equity, venture capital, bunch of real estate syndicators. We've interviewed a bunch of different models, on the show, and so people could go back and learn the different business models of each different type of group. What's the business model of a hedge fund?
Yeah. So essentially, a hedge fund can be considered as private equity, but it is a lane where the resources or the capital is specifically traded in the capital markets. So that could be in the public market. So you have hedge firms that trade equities or trade stock, and then you can have hedge firms that trade, excuse me, private assets. So a hedge fund can actually invest into real estate, can actually invest into venture capital or startup products, but the primary offering is trading in public markets. So we could trade stocks, we can trade bonds, we can trade crypto, we can trade Forex, we can trade futures, we can trade most of those general public equity classes or public asset classes. And we do it in two different approaches. So you have discretionary, where humans are making the decision, and then you have algorithmic, where the computer generated models are making the decision. So I run a systematic algorithmic based hedge fund. So we're about 97% autonomous. And then that 3% is like, me making the decisions or the assets that we will trade in. And then we train our models, as you can see in the background, to trade for us essentially 24 hours a day, depending on the asset class. And so a hedge fund is different from a mutual fund, because a mutual fund is a fund that is raised and they're only looking to trade in those public stock markets and things of that nature. So there is a discrepancy on the types of asset class that can separate hedge from venture from private equity, but it's more literally to trade, to buy something relatively low, sell it relatively high, or sell it relatively high and buy it back relatively low in the effort of trading specifically.
So when you were going through the different models, right? Like you and your wife are doing financial literacy. She's got the blue check mark on Instagram. You're the Instagram husband hiding in the background who every once in a while gets pulled onto a video or a picture to show how awesome of a dad you are, right, on
Right.
Instagram.
Right.
How did you choose hedge fund versus, hey, let's just do this for ourselves. Let's just teach other people how to do that. Why did you choose hedge?
Yeah. So in 2018, when I was at the VC fund, like I said, I was migrating already towards the trading side of the house. Then met my wife, who was a trader. I have read a book maybe 2 years prior called Beat the Dealer
Hmm.
by Edward Thorpe. I would say so. Two of the most impactful books that got me on this road would be Edward Thorpe, Beat the Dealer, and Reginald F. Lewis, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? Right? So, so Edward Thorpe, have you ever seen the movie 21?
Yeah. The
So Kevin
counter.
Spacey's character is based off of Edward Thorpe. Edward Thorpe was a Harvard, MIT professor, mathematician, and physicist who came up with a card counting system, taught himself how to count cards using math, went and crushed Vegas for millions and millions of dollars. That is a
Got
true story.
banned, so he taught other people how to do it.
Yes. And that's a true story. And the movie and the true story becomes a book called Beat the Dealer. Beat the Dealer becomes a book called 21. So they bought the rights to Beat the Dealer and made it into the movie 21. I read the book, taught myself how to count cards, and have had very successful nights in Vegas playing blackjack. 2 years later, I come across a book called Beat the Market,
Hmm.
which is also by Edward Thorpe. So once he got banned from Vegas and got bored, he started channeling his efforts to the stock market and worked with a couple of people and came up with some financial systems that really polarized the hedge fund industry. And now he's still alive and runs multiple multi-billion-dollar hedge funds.
Hmm.
And so I read this book and I was like, wow, I know what I did with the Beat the Dealer book. I'm already interested in trading and I'm already leaning towards the trading side of this house. Let me start a hedge fund because I want to take the same skill set, work ethic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I want to start a hedge fund because if he can do it, I can do it. And that is literally what got me on the path. So I just started ordering a bunch of books and studying to start preparing myself to launch a hedge fund. Now, fast forward 2 more years after that, it's 2020. The pandemic has swept across the world. Everything shut down.
You almost
We
died.
began to teach I'm sorry, right. But
Yeah, you
this is
almost
prior
died.
to. So now we're in 2020
Yep.
and we began to teach our family these financial education principles. And our family started learning and making money. And, you know, sometimes family is the most difficult to deal with. So we're like, well, if they can get it, anybody can get it and do it, right?
Yeah.
So we launched the course in August 2020. And, excuse me, within 12 months' time, we had about 3,000 students, and those students were making hundreds of thousands, close to millions of dollars within the 12 months, with 12-month time. And so that literally just started as a course of let us help some people. Like literally my wife was like, if we could help 20 people, I would count this as a success. And the first month we had 66 students and it just took off from there. So the business itself went from 0 to 10 million in 18 months. The students went from 0 to 30 to 4,500. We're almost at 5,000 students now. And the students have made hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars trading the strategies that we've taught them since August 2020. So it's been an amazing journey. And, the money is cool, but the impact that we've made, I mean, we have hundreds, if not thousands of videos of people giving testimonies and crying and talking about how it's impacted their life and how they're teaching their children and really breaking generational curses with those people finding the light, if you will, through some financial education and financial literacy. So those things are very, very powerful and important to us.
Dude, you and I are gonna have some cool conversations maybe after this thing.
Let's do it.
Yeah. But while we're recording, because I don't want to get us too far off topic, right? But I think that there's some mindset stuff that we have to discuss because I've made money, lost money, made money, lost money, and if I
Same.
look back, I'm pretty good at it, right?
I
If
think
I
all good deal people, you gotta experience both sides, right?
Yeah. If I look back at it, I think a lot of it had to do around mindset and a lot about, we talk about energy, we talk about what's going on between the ears. And I'll tell you, man, didn't matter how much money I made in those time periods or whatever, I was going to lose it because something in me says I wasn't worth it. Something in me that says you don't deserve this. Something in me that says you're probably going to blow it up and destroy it anyways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you can teach people, right? We could go to Inglewood together and we could give them a laptop and pay for their internet and then show them here's how to make money. They can make money, right? What's to prevent people once we're making money as deal makers to keep the money and grow the money and then be able to one day pass it on to our kids? What happens there?
Yeah, so we start the course off with mindset, and you can't even start the course without going through the mindset module. That is literally the first thing that we do,
Cool.
right? And I'm a firm believer, this is literally my favorite quote. Whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't,
You're right.
you are right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so it starts with belief. If you don't believe, there's no way it's going to happen, and there's no way you're going to be able to convince anybody else to believe. So that's number one. It starts with belief, and faith and fear cannot live in the same heart. Okay. Second, your mindset. Belief is a part of your mindset, but then you actually have to believe that you deserve to have money, that you deserve to be wealthy, that you deserve to have the lifestyle that you desire to live, right? We're big on lifestyle design. You wasn't born to work, pay bills, and die. I refuse to believe that. I refuse to accept that, right? And so we have mindset, mantras. So we have like a trader's creed that we make sure that students say every day before they make a trade. And then we actually have mindset and positive affirmation videos that we have the students listen to. And so all of that is a part of the course before you learn one trading strategy, before you learn about one instrument. And that just shows the priority of that to us and why we think it's so important. So once you make the decision that is something that you want to do, you want to learn about it, or you want to make the decision that you want to be wealthy, you make the decision that you want to live the life that you want to live, that decision actually puts that force of energy out into the universe, right? Mm-hmm. And so things will begin to be attracted to you to help you reach that goal, right? So that is our approach. Then we take you through the step-by-step process of learning about the markets, learning some history about the markets, learning about the assets that you're looking to trade, then learning trading and investing strategies, because a lot of people don't know that investing and trading are actually two different things and two different approaches, right? And then once you learn that, then you can get into some specific strategies that you can implement in individual asset classes, and some strategies can be implemented across multiple different asset classes. And then once you understand that, then you can talk about risk management, which is a very, very important factor. I would say is probably number two outside of mindset, because what we teach our students is you're not a trader, you're not an investor, you're a risk manager. Because if you have capital and you properly manage the risk, you got a chance to be in the game and you got a chance to win the game. But if you blow through your account and you blow through your money, you cannot be in the game. And if you cannot be in the game, you cannot win the game. And so that's kind of the overall approach that we break down for our students, which is why we believe that these are things that they learn, they digest it, they retain it, and then are actually able to execute on it. And we are very, very big on telling them this is not a get rich quick scheme. And if you cannot afford to use disposable income that is not attached to your bills or your priorities, then this might not be the time or course for you, because you have to emotionally detach away from the money. And we teach them how and why. But if you are emotionally attached to the money, then you're not going to be making rational decisions, which can affect your psychology, which can affect your trading, which can affect your bottom line.
True. True. Have you seen the show Billions?
It's my favorite show.
It's so good. Who's your favorite character?
Axe. And
really?
I was so crushed that he's no longer on there. So spoiler alert if you haven't. But Billions is my favorite show. Axe is my favorite character. Succession is a good show as well. But
I heard it's pretty good.
In general, Billions is my favorite show on TV all around. And Axe is my favorite character.
Wendy Rhodes, my favorite by far. Oh my gosh, she's
I love
so
Wendy.
good.
I love Wendy. She's a close second, but also like I'm a hedge fund manager, so Axe is like, and Axe's character went to Hofstra.
Oh, did he? Yeah.
Yeah. So if you watch the opening episode, within the first 5 minutes, they have a clip of him talking to two guys, and one guy went to Stanford, and he was relaying messages to Axe, and the guy that brought the analyst to Axe was like, huh, and he went to Hofstra. So immediately, before I watched anything else in the series, Axe was immediately my favorite character in the first 5 minutes because I went to Hofstra. So it's cool.
I also like Wags. Dude, Wags is Wags. Hilarious.
Love Wags. They have a great dynamic cast on there with a bunch of different characters that mesh very, very well, right? Wags is the loose end who just keeps it light, gets after it, and he's the deal guy.
He's the deal guy.
He's like, whatever we got to do to get the deal done, good, bad, or indifferent, let's get this deal done.
Yeah.
Wendy is the cool, calm, rational thinker, performance coach. Axe is the visionary, but also the deal maker and executor and gets it done. Taylor, I love Taylor.
The quant.
Taylor. So Pouncil Capital is more along the lines of Mason Capital as far as like execution, because we're an algo, quantitative hedge fund. But I would say I'm a mesh of Axe, Taylor, Wags, and Wendy.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, Taylor, brilliant. Holy moly! And brilliant. when she gets, I love this part. Like when she gets, I don't want to give away too much, but she's wrong, and she could see how she's wrong, and she you could almost see her analytically course correct and talk it out. Yeah, it's like I love the way her brain works.
Data synthesis. The way she processes the information and chooses the best potential outcome, even though it may not necessarily agree with her initial thoughts. And she does a very great job of emotional control and emotional IQ and what is the other one? I forget.
EQ, IQ.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So IQ and EQ. She has a great balance of both EQ and IQ.
Yeah, no, I love that. And such a cool show. So you're kind of like Mason Capital, right? You have the quants, you have your algorithmic things, and you're
literally
97% autonomous. So data in, data out. So you got to make sure that your machines are right.
Yes, and you want factual data. You want correct data, and you want accurate data, and then you want low latency, right? Because when you get the data makes an important factor. So like our algos right now trade sub 1 second. And so this is what I was mentioning about the levels of investing and trading. And if you have some time, I can kind of break it down because it's important for people to know the type of trading investing that goes on. So investing is bigger picture long term. Think of legacy playbook. You're buying an asset and you're looking to hold it for generations and pass it down. Okay. That's investing. So we teach is like you got a 1 year playbook that you're buying an asset and you're not going to touch it for a minimum of 1 year. And then you have your legacy playbook where you're going to buy an asset and the full goal is to pass it down to your generations. That's pretty much investing, period. And you're done, right? That's investing. Trading has different levels. So you have position traders who are looking to build a position over time, and they might buy one stock here, 1,000 stocks this month, 10,000 stocks next year, and they're building a position in one particular asset or asset class. That's a position trade, okay? And they're building a position with the goal to hold it long term. Then you have swing traders, and swing traders are looking to get in and out of a trade between 7 days and 1 month, roughly, okay? After position traders, then after swing traders, then you have day traders. The day traders are looking to get in and out of a trade between 1 minute and 3 days, roughly. The max they usually will hold something is about a week, but they're day traders. They're looking to get in and out roughly in the same day. Then you have scalpers, okay? Scalpers are looking to get in and out of trades within seconds and minutes, okay? Then once you get to scalping, you have some scalpers are human scalpers, where they're trading as a human, clicking the button, making discretionary decisions. And then that's when you start, algos play a role at every level, but when you get to scalping, that's where you really start to get to the algorithmic trading world, okay? In the algorithmic trading world, you can go basically, we are sub 1 second. So my algos operate probably about 8/10 of a second, okay? Or about 8 milliseconds, let's say. So they can scan the market, get in the trade, manage the trade, and get out of the trade within less than 1 second, okay? And that's scalping. After scalping and after algorithmic trading at sub 1 second, you have high frequency trading, which is literally sub-second, close to the speed of light. So when I tell you these things are physics and math based, I mean that to the T. People are literally trading at the speed of light, very, very close to the speed of light, okay? And so if they get the data before you get the data, they can get in and out of the trade and make the money before you even learn about what happened, okay? And so this is important when you start talking about data and you start talking about access to data, access to information, and accurate data. Because there are thousands of trades. We have an algorithm that can make 1 million decisions in 1 second, okay? So you can program 1 million different if and then scenarios or 1 million different decisions. And those decisions can be processed close to the speed of light, and the decision can be identified, evaluated, and made in less than 1 second. There are levels. Literally.
So good. Man, I've got so many questions. We might have to do some more of these because I think that it's important for people to understand, hear this, learn this. To be honest, man, like I think I'm more of a trader. I think that my personality, I think the way my brain works, definitely not quant, definitely not, Taylor. But I think my brain's more geared towards that, and it might be through some of stuff I went through or whatever. But I would love to dive deeper into the psychology of investing, the psychology of trading, the personalities behind it, which one is a good fit for you and me.
Absolutely. You bring up a great point. It's so important. That's part of the process is learning about yourself, because we say the markets are mirrors, but also learning what type of trading style works best for you. Anything you are going through psychologically or haven't dealt with, the markets are going to expose.
Yeah.
There's no question. If you have a lack of patience, you're going to get exposed. You have a lack of discipline, you're going to get exposed. You have a lack of self-control, you have a lack of money management. If you have greed, right? So when you watch Wall Street or you watch Money Never Sleeps, greed is good, right? If you are greedy, because there are several times you could be in a trade and you could be winning and you get too greedy and you don't set your stop loss, or you don't get out the trade and you don't take your profits off the table, and that trade turns around and you end up turning a losing trade or winning trade into a losing trade because you were being greedy. the markets will expose all of those things. And here's one thing here's multiple things the markets do not care about. The markets do not care who you are. The markets do not care where you're from. The markets do not care what race you are. The markets do not care what gender you are. The markets do not care about your sexual orientation. The markets do not care what God you serve. The markets do not care what part of the world. It does not care. Period. Right? So, and the market is the only place, or one of the only places in the world where both people think they are right.
Mm-hmm.
One person is selling for whatever reason that they are selling, because maybe they believe that the market is going to go down, and one person is buying that from the seller because they think it's going to go up. Mm-hmm. So both people on the same exact transaction think that they have the accurate data, the right timing, and that they're making the right decision. But only one of them will be right, and only the market will tell that over time.
Super cool. We're gonna have to do other
Very
conversations,
biased.
but before we go, I have a deck
I'm
of
with it.
cards that has
I'm
some
loving it.
questions on it. All right, ready? Pick a card and I'll ask you the question on it.
Stop.
All right, this, sir, is your question.
Okay.
What would your this is a cool question. What would your 10-year-old self think of your present self?
Mine would be astronomically blown, because at 10 years old, my number one goal was to be a Hall of Fame baseball player, have great success at that, and take care of it. So to see myself, my mom didn't play about school, so I was always, very keen on education and got good grades. But for me, school to a certain extent was a means to an end. It was go to school, get good grades so you can go pro and or go to a good college and go pro, right? Like I got accepted to Dartmouth out of high school, but Ivy League doesn't offer athletic scholarships, and I couldn't afford $50,000 coming out the hood, right? So my 10-year-old self would be pleasantly surprised, but also very proud, because I took the work ethic, the patience, the self-control, the discipline, this transferable skills from baseball and applied it to business, and specifically in finance. And this is the first and only thing that has given me the spark like I have for this particular thing since baseball. So, it's very competitive. It's very high energy. You got to perform, and so it's, it can be team oriented. It can be individual. I'm very honored and very grateful to be where I am. And I'm very thankful that my experience in and with baseball trained me for this big leagues.
All right. So I'm going to take a wild ass guess to guess which position you played based on how your brain works. I think, gosh, there's so many different positions, but I think you played second base.
Wow. Very
Am
good.
I right?
So I played shortstop through college, second base, and pro ball. Yeah.
Second base is the person who kind of controls the field by looking at the fields, because you have to either run to plate, you have to run to first. It's the analytical person who plays second. I played catcher, so nice. Second base and catcher were always coordinating and conversating.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, middle of the field, they're the field generals. They're running the field for everybody out there, and catcher is very, very close second, right after middle infield. But yeah, that I share that story. I know we got to get ready to wrap. But when I played shortstop and second base, I took thousands of ground balls every day, right? Yeah. I would take like 1,000 ground balls a day. And for the people who are not as familiar with baseball, a ground ball is when a person hits the ball and the ball is bouncing on the ground through the infield, and the fielder has to read the ball off the bat, forecast or predict or project where the ball is going to be, beat the ball to the spot, and make the play, right? And if you see the ball bounce, it literally looks like a ball bouncing or a chart. When I transitioned out of baseball and I got into business, I said, wow, successful business people identify a market, they forecast or predict where that market is going to go, and then they beat the market to the spot to be able to provide a product or service to the people who are looking for that product or service. And so training my mind for years, taking ground balls and forecasting, beating the ball to the spot is essentially what I've been doing in business. Now, even go deeper, when you look at a chart is literally going up and down and you're predicting where it's going to go next and trying to beat that market to the spot. And that is literally what my brain has been programmed to do for the first 22 years of my life. So when I say I'm amazingly grateful, it is an amazing tie-in, and I am very, very thankful for it.
You are cool, man. You are super cool.
Thank
Super
you.
nerdy. Super nerdy, but
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, I was the hybrid. I was the bridge between the nerds and the cool kids.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. For fellow deal makers in the audience who want to learn from you, learn with you, do a deal with you, where could they go to connect with you?
Yes. So Pouncil Capital is the hedge fund. Simply pouncilcapital.com. My social handles across all social handles is just Dion Pouncil, my name. For people interested in the courses and the educational content, moneyschool.com,
That's a great domain.
MoneySkool.com, because we're
Yeah.
making it cool to learn about money and financial education.
Yeah.
And so those are the handles across all the platforms. So moneyschool.com, pouncilcapital.com, and Dion Pouncil is my name and social handles.
What's a question that I should have asked you that I completely screwed up and did not ask you?
You ran the gamut. So I would say this was an amazing interview. I'm very grateful for you to have me. I think the questions were great, and my eldest is 2 and my youngest is 8 months. So
Beautiful.
there's a question you didn't ask, was how old my daughters
Beautiful.
are. But
Beautiful.
other than that, I think you did a great job, and I'm really
Do we
appreciative that you had me on here.
do we see future other kids coming?
You know what's interesting? I actually want twin boys. Twins run in my family.
Nice.
They run in my wife's family,
Oh my
and
gosh.
and our line is next up. So twins usually like skip a generation. We're both next up. So it's a very high probability that we can have twins. The thing is I don't know if we do have twins and we get 2 more girls. Oh my gosh. I love my ladies. Love them. But 4 girls plus my wife in one house, just me. I don't know. So we're in a hard pause right now.
Yeah. It means you're sleeping on the couch. Just
Hard
kidding.
pause. Yeah.
Awesome. Dion, thanks for being on the show. Fellow deal makers, as always, reach out to our guests and say thanks for being on the show. If what they're saying resonates with you and you want to do a deal with them, reach out and say, hey, heard you on the show. How do we connect? How do we do a deal? Follow what they're doing. If you, listeners, are working on a deal, want to talk about it here on the show, or are looking for a specific deal, head on over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, maybe get you on the show next. One of our cool new features is there's a little microphone in the bottom of the website. You could click on that, leave me a voicemail, and maybe even share those kind of voicemails here on the show. So if you've got advice for deal makers, or if you want to talk about a deal, that might be the way to do it. Go give it a shot. Till then, talk to you all on the next episode. See you, everybody.